Good afternoon, my name is Nukin. We are Freedom UATV English, Ukrainian State Television. We are in Munich, as you can see, beautiful scenery on the backdrop. Snow is falling and a lot of things is going on. We are going to discuss tonight with my fellow from Latvia. I was born and raised in Latvia, this is why, that makes the stop, the pause. So, Rihards Kols.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My first question is, indeed, the schedule is packed with a lot of things. And as you rightfully said, to stop and to recall what is going on, to reflect on that is very important. But we are discussing security, European security. What is that even? Can you please educate me on that?
I mean European security.
Exactly.
That is the what we have created on the ashes of Second World War, the order, the environments, and of course very soon we will celebrate the 80th year of defeating of Nazi Germany.
Right.
And based on that, of course, not everyone enjoyed the freedom. Unfortunately, there were countries in Europe that still were behind the Iron Curtain under Soviet rule for another 50 years. We liberated, I would say, these countries as well, and based on that, we created the environment, the security environment under NATO umbrella, vis-a-vis also the EU structures as well, and this is the environment that has enjoyed peace, stability, and prosperity. And all of this, have been shaken up for the past 10 years in Ukraine. Ukraine is Europe. That geographically should be defined, and there is somebody who is objecting that's not even Europe. Obviously lives somewhere, across the Ural mountain sphere. So right now we have the aggressor in a shape of similar to the Second World War perpetrator, right. Soviet Union. They proudly say that they're a continuation of the Soviet and the Tsarist Russia, and that is in the face of the Vladimir Putin, who is this big antagonizer to rebuild the empire on the expense of the sovereign and independent countries. Ukraine is first to be attacked, but what the message is, and it's clear message from Putin, it's not the message from Europe and so on, from the Putin. My appetite is way bigger than Ukraine itself. It's also to test the resolve in NATO alliance as well, their ability to really vouch for the security architecture that we have jointly built. And this is, I think, the core interest of Vladimir Putin. So right now we are at the existential crossroads right now, particularly for the Baltic countries.
Right.
And right now, Munich conference entered the first few days, and I think it was just slightly a few hours before, certain announcements from the new U.S. administration.
We heard that all right.
But not only announcements, but the telephone conversation between Trump and Putin, prior even for him having a conversation with Zelensky, even though he had later on. And that raises, of course, the question, where do we stand within the NATO as well, but also Europe as the continent? Is the Transatlantic partnership still strong and valid? Are there some things that we are not detecting?
Well, exactly my question. So
yes.
You're just reading my mind. So
the thing is, you see, like right now, the snow is falling from the sky. For the past 3 days, different rhetoric was falling out of politician leaders' mouths. Right. Yes, you can get wet and feel discomfort, but that's a reality. That is something, you realize it. You cannot ignore. And this is something now for the European leaders to reflect in a sense, what exactly is the message, what is the call from the U.S., and they're rightful things that the U.S. administration is pointing out to Europe to do more, to invest more in defense and so on, to maybe put aside those issues that not pressing at the moment as well. And I think the issue is that Europe is doing way more than it was doing during Trump's first administration. Absolutely. Well, yes, there are those who are lagging behind on defense expenditure. Yes, there are still 8 NATO member states that are not delivering. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. But to put everyone in one basket in Europe is not the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
We have the frontier countries, Central Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, delivering way above the punchline.
Like Latvia, I know.
Latvia, we right now stand at 3.4%. Actually exceeding U.S. expenditure on defense. Of course, you can. Right? Somebody who says that, how can you compare? Of course, but in relative numbers to the population and so on,
right. But
this is what we are.
You are, as a law now in Latvia,
yes.
it tells you 1.25%. Is that the what you spend?
So far, yes. Since full-scale invasion, Latvia has provided assistance to Ukraine, both financial, military, humanitarian, up to 1.4% from our GDP.
1.4% from a small European country.
Yes.
There's no comparison to like United States, economically, politically, or militarily. Why?
Well, we understand what is at stake.
What is at stake?
At stake is our existence, actually, our sovereignty as well, because there's an imperialistic. Sorry, I will not curse, but I want to curse when I talk about Putin. That has clearly stated he wants to abolish rules-based international order. And for small countries, rules-based international order is existential. Be it Latvia, be it Switzerland, be it, Andorra, it's existential. And we see the axis of evil. It's not just Russia. It's Iran in Middle East. And you have a big hegemon in Far East, China. They are cooperating. Not only ad hoc cooperation, strategic cooperation, really undermining international institutions, rules-based order. Right. And somebody says, yeah, but who established this rules-based order? Everyone. For God's sake, everyone. After Second World War, forming UN, all the UN member states created this rules-based order where might will not make right, where rules will follow, where those who cherish the rules and apply those, where we respect the agreements we sign. That is the rules-based order I'm talking about. Somebody is always pulling this, saying, yeah, but this is some kind of Soros sees something created this rule-based order and so on, and now pushing the agenda. No, it's actually the world, the global community came together after the Second World War and created this rule-based order that is on mutual respect, no matter what is the size of your country.
Right.
And this is something being very determinedly abolished.
Talking about mutual respect.
Yes.
United States and Europe, how are we doing in this regard?
Well, I'm true transatlantist. No matter what is going to be on the daily agenda and so on, I'm going to fight for the backbone being strengthened in the transatlantic relations. Right. Yes, we might have different administrations, different governments in Europe, different European Parliament, different accents, but it is proven. Don't look further, just look at the last 80 years. It is the accomplishment of this transatlantic cooperation, the prosperity. Yes, we might have smaller, bigger crises and so on, but we see that relation is something that cannot be just abolished with one or another administration. Yes, we might have difficult times, but the best thing is to do is to talk to each other, not at each other, but to each other. And this is exactly what in the Munich conference we did. Right. One thing is what happens at panels. Right. At panels we talk because there is no one who's going back. But there are bilateral meetings, intensive bilateral meetings. For me myself, yesterday I had, if I'm not losing the count, around 15 bilateral relations with the U.S. representatives and so on. And we're on the same page. The question is, how exactly...
Are you saying we're not seeing much? We do not know. We're seeing it in the panels, right?
I think so, yes. There's a lot of rhetoric.
Not seeing enough, let's say, let's put it that way.
But not always. Everything has to be on a plate.
Absolutely.
And there is no secret deal
and so on.
This is why
I'm asking the questions.
So, of course, we might criticize each other. Is this the best way to do? We can then elaborate what did one leader said or not in a closed meeting, right, when there, it's an open and frank conversation. Like, for example, the announcement that, in the potential peace talks, there's no place for Europe at the table. Well, it's it's just impossible in practice.
Well,
Because Ukraine is Europe, and everything that will be agreed and so on, we are also to be implemented.
It is not that obvious for
Yeah.
some. Obviously, for some hosts are asking questions like to President of Latvia,
Yes.
Kasinkiewicz,
Yes.
just today, and he said that Ukraine is just a pawn, and the king and the queen are deciding which move to make. Is that so? That was the question. It was a polite question, but still. So, do you believe that this is absolutely impossible?
He said this comparison.
Exactly. Just a minute ago.
Well, I don't share.
It doesn't
I don't
matter.
share
I'm sure
his
the view
views.
either, but-
Yes,
but, I mean, there-
my absolute conviction is that Ukraine is not something abstract. It's a sovereign country recognized by UN in the 1991 determined borders. And there's no one who can say what concessions you have to make, in what way. It's Ukrainians and Ukrainians only that can decide that. Yes, we can provide the environment, security guarantees and everything, to which Ukraine then can decide, this is our position, this is what we are ready to do. But not putting on the table, I use the term, Ukraine has to be at the table, not on the table. And that is the principle that we have to push for all the leaders. Yes, I know it's a good thing that Macron has called for the EU summit. Well, I'm receiving different information that not all the EU leaders have been called for this summit, which raises again the questions. What is this kind of summit? Don't call it EU summit, call it France summit. Why I'm saying this? This reminds me again on the post-2014 situation. We had the Minsk, we had the Normandy format, and the rest of the Europe was not actually included in these talks. So this time...
A little bit of history repeating itself.
Well, history has the tendency to repeat it. The question is, do we allow it to repeat itself? Everyone before the Munich who didn't, had the tiredness mentioned the 1938 and so on.
Right.
But I think we already entering the 1939. This is where, if we look back in the history, it's only after 50 years the whole world learned Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So right now, if the US is not transparent with its EU allies on what is actually happening, what is the modus operandi for all of this exercise that we're seeing right now? Putin calling Trump other way around, meeting in Saudi Arabia, and etc. Are there any deals already behind allies being struck on, defining the interest lines?
Well, that reflects my questions and my
But of course,
feelings.
right now I just can, speculate on those things.
Okay, let's not speculate. Can
Yes.
I ask you, finalizing you once said on the panel in OSCE,
Yes, I did.
That famous phrase, and I made a mark
Yes,
for myself to meet you,
yes.
to shake your hand, to thank you for that. Can you please repeat that for us?
Well, again, for the viewers, if I'm just going to say out bluntly now,
No.
it won't make a sense why the hell I'm saying that.
But-
But it's essential to give the background. It was the first anniversary of the full-scale invasion for Russia in Ukraine.
Right.
It was the gathering at Vienna, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And everyone was pushing that the Russian delegation should not be invited. Austrians saying, we're neutral, so we're issuing national visas to them so they come. It really infuriated me. And I was the head of the Latvian delegation to the OSCE, and I see that I'm standing at the Hofburg Palace entrance door, everyone, all the MPs, going to the security screening and so on. And the journalist comes to me and like, you're fools. I'm like, well, why are you saying such a thing, right? Well, the Russian delegation have been already escorted through the back doors into the palace. That really triggered me. Then I'm sitting down, all 57 countries' representatives, MPs. So the panel is saying, we still need to have, no matter what is the situation, we need to have a dialogue with Russia. And I'm just sitting there, and those criminals are there.
Right.
And then, yes, I was given a word, and it really was spontaneous at that moment. I really said, this is as bizarre as it can be. When OSCE is complaining that we cannot do anything about the OSCE employees arrested in the occupied territories, that they will be trialed,
You said
Those-
exactly.
those are
there's
the-
an elephant in the room. That's what you said.
Yeah. Well, the Russian delegation took it literally because they complained, Russian delegation will not accept that they're compared to the elephant. What an idiot. But okay, that's up to them. But of course, in the end, I did quote the Russian border guards. And I said I have a message to convey to the Russian delegation. And I said, Русский военный корабль пошел нахуй. I will not put the subtitles and so on, but somebody said, well, I'm swearing. No, I do not do self-censorship. I did say that I'm going to quote.
Right, right, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, what can I say? Thank you for your time, for your expertise, for your emotion, and for what you say and for what you do. Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you. Pleasure.